Yeah, I'm not on yet. How's your food? All right, I'm gonna go on. Oh, good start. Good start. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. First time streaming on YouTube. Don't have a bot set up or anything. So everything is in the description, or as everyone calls it these days, and I hate it, the doobly-doo. We're just waiting for people to show up. Anka said she was joining, but I haven't seen her yet. Magic Tatoes said that he would be back for this one. Anka typing. Let's see what's happening. Ori first? Always first? Who calls it that? God, so many, like, tech YouTubers. I don't know who started it, but, like, especially retro tech YouTubers call it the doobly-doo, and it's the worst. Let me move chat closer to my webcam so it looks like I'm looking at you when I'm talking to you. I think we're getting an Anka. Let's see. It makes sense that they would. Wow. Jeez. Live and coming at him. Alright, Anka will be here momentarily. It might just end up being Anka and I. We might not get anybody else. Which I'm down with. I know that Hamoodi's really busy with school, so is sitting out this book. Hato said that they were going to try to come, but weren't sure. I think Audrey was in the same boat, like a maybe, but not 100% certain. So if we have a small group, we have a small group. That's fine. Uh-oh, computer's angry. How am I doing? I'm okay. I'm okay. Had a good turkey day, even though we ate chicken, so it wasn't a turkey day. Anka getting a snack. Yeah, it's been a pretty low-key. We watched Ruth's Nephew yesterday, which was a-okay too. Went to the bookstore, got some new books. Always good. Oh, there's something I wanted to check. Hopefully... Oh, there's something I want to... Please... Oh, no. That's not what I wanted you to do. Okay, so it does give you guys train codes. You don't have to watch in 1080p. I thought that they did, which is why I broadcasted at a... Yeah, absolutely. No respect for Turkey Day because... horrible origins. So instead we eat chicken. Instead we eat chicken. Depressing books as always. I think the most interesting looking one that I picked up yesterday called The Genome Defense. I was glaring at it from across the room to try to figure out what it was called. And it's about how tech companies have patented the BRCA gene, which is the early breast cancer screening gene that they screen particularly women, although the homies can have breast cancer too, and they make a bunch of money off selling those screening tests now. And the ACLU sued to try to get that gene released back into public domain, drive down the cost of breast cancer screening. And the book is all about that court case. And I don't know the outcome of that court case because it's not something I was following when it was happening. So we're going in real blind. And then the other book is a real thick one, like 1,000 pages, so it's going to take me forever to read. And it's about the history of American capitalism and how it's led to rampant inequality. I don't remember what that one's called. The text is too far to read from here, but I think it's just called Ages of American Capitalism. So that should be fun. I hadn't heard of the case either. I didn't know that, like, BRCA gene ACLU case. I don't know if it's pronounced BRCA. It's BRCA. Maybe it's just pronounced BRCA. Anyways. Oh, spoilers. I looked at ACLU's website about it, and it says what happened with the case there. So now I know. But whatever. Anyways, sounds like a wild book. Thousand pages of American capitalism. Yeah, I mean, I think it leads to good things in the end, right? It talks about how, like, we industrialized and we're like world leaders in marketplaces, and then deregulation happened and people stopped paying their fair share of taxes, and they were allowed to just like ravage all the natural resources, and now we have like nothing but really super rich wealth grabbers. I haven't read anything else from the author, so I don't know a whole ton about his like writing style or his stances, but I read some reviews of the book before I got it because 1,000 pages is a lot to commit to without reading a little bit of something, and they said that it it leads to an appropriately scathing criticism of modern capitalism. So I'm on board with it. I'm down. I gotta get a new YouTube profile picture. Set it as that one because it was hideous and I wanted people leaving me alone when I bullied them for comments on YouTube. But now I'm going to be using my YouTube channel and it's real rough looking. It's a cropped picture of me holding Ruth's cat Rainer, and he also looks very raggedy in the picture. It's just bad all around. I love it. Oh, I was just rambling, Lythan. Killing time waiting for Anka. Maybe I should open Twitter and post that I'm going live. Hashtag book club? Will that get some engagement? Circe. Miller. YouTube. What is the link to the broadcast? That is kind of the one big pain about YouTube so far that I've noticed, which is like very, very early days of using it. This is my first YouTube stream ever. Is that unlike Twitch, where I can post the same link every time, right? It's always twitch.tv/thenoble1. Like, I think that each broadcast has its own unique URL, and so linking it is a much bigger pain in the butt. Real keister burner, if you will. Retweet it from my other account. I bet you if I got like a vanity URL on YouTube, oh, Anka's here, that I could probably just link to the vanity URL. And
hello.
Hey, welcome.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I just had to get myself a little dinner.
What'd you get?
My usual like roasted fake meat and gnocchi. It's like I can fry that in like 2 minutes. So
I am like a fan of a lot of meat substitutes, but there's nothing that sounds more appealing than the term roasted fake meat. Okay, you really killed that one.
You know, I wasn't trying to sell you on that.
Fair, fair. I should have thought of this earlier, but let me grab my copy of the book really quick, just in case we refer to anything from the book.
Yeah, we probably will. I also need to open it up.
Okay. I'll be right back. 1 second.
Yeah. And for the record, roasted fake meat is good. Have it. Try it. Give it a chance. Come on. I know you want to.
Okay.
So what the hell is up with YouTube creating a different link for every broadcast? That's so dumb.
Yeah,
I
so I
can't
think
believe
that
this.
it's like the way that YouTube does them is like it creates a new video or whatever, like on your channel every
Hmm.
time you go to broadcast. And so like it has its own unique URL. But it's really obnoxious. I think maybe if I ever got enough subscribers to get a vanity URL, like Shadow has youtube.com/c/shadow at noon, that I could probably just link my vanity URL and people would be able to
Oh.
find it from there. But I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I have no idea how YouTube streaming works.
Me either.
Never
This
tried
is
it.
first time. We're doing it
Leiden.
live.
Roasted fake meat sounds like the outcome of a bad date. Oh no.
All right, Lad, then I hope that mobile YouTube treats you well. I think mobile YouTube is better than mobile Twitch for what it's worth. Mobile Twitch
Is
is
it?
real booty.
Oh, but browser YouTube stream is horrible. I hate the chat. Oh my god, it's so ugly.
Yeah, it is atrocious. That isn't any better on mobile.
Let me pop it out. It's just like so small and like forgettable. You know?
Forgettable. Wow.
Chat is forgettable.
Chat is
Yeah.
cockroach.
Y'all in chat, you heard it here. But anyways, how's it going? I kind of just popped in and didn't ask. I'm a bit like scatterbrained right now.
No worries. That's totally fine. It's going well, I would say. A little on the tired side. I've been sleeping pretty poorly lately, but otherwise no complaints. How are you?
Tired with work, too much work. Otherwise fine.
Are y'all
Just
still
getting
cramming for demo?
fit.
Is that work?
Yes.
Yeah.
That work.
I mean, not cramming. You don't do crunch, but doing everything you can.
We're not doing crunch, but we're also, I'm not sure what we're doing. It's like I don't really know how to get to a point where we have something that we're gonna be happy with. So
Sure.
it's fine. It's fine. Don't
work
listen
out.
to me. Yeah. Also, we have the presentation next week, so we're gonna be kind of more chill after that.
Gotcha.
I was actually thinking to let people know in case they want to watch that, which because it's gonna be like a live stream, but I don't know if I want to share that, you know. Still thinking about it.
Gotta have your thoughts once it's a little closer to release and you see how it's all come together.
Yeah.
I think Ruth might have said
we'll
something.
see.
I'm gonna go check in with her really quick before we get going.
A video from 3 years? What video is that, Leiden? Does Eric have a lot of YouTube videos that I've just totally missed out on? Also, God, what is going on, YouTube? Let me click on things.
Okay.
Whoa, I wasn't even following. I wasn't even following your YouTube channel. Oh, look at all the YouTube stuff that I didn't even know was on your channel.
Oh yeah,
just
I
gave
have
you a
like older
follow.
stuff on my channel.
I see.
It's a very big like mishmash of different hobbies at the time. So there'll be like 4 or 5 videos in a row about one thing, and then nothing about it ever again, and then like 4 or 5 videos in a row about another thing, and then nothing about it ever again.
Well, seems intriguing.
Absolutely.
If there's so much variety. Google Plus Auto Awesome Lazy Day. That's from 7 years ago. Holy shit.
There's some very old stuff on there. Correct, Lythan. I'm a content creator.
For
a
sure.
real YouTube savant.
Look at you playing guitar in there, and your cat looking unimpressed.
Always, as they are.
Yeah, that is their tendency. So you play guitar, huh?
I do. I mainly play bass, but I also play guitar.
That's very cool. I'm jelly. I cannot play any instrument.
I think you're better
Really?
at music production than I am. You got the beats.
Yeah, I can mess in a DAW, but when it comes to playing instruments, eh, I tried, but I didn't really stick to it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean it's not for everyone. It's complicated to get started, and it's very frustrating when you're like first trying to learn, for sure.
Yeah, I would have had to also get more comfortable with just both practicing alone and with other people. And I think like the part with doing it with other people was very intimidating because I would get very self-conscious.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's
So
very hard to get over.
yeah, definitely, for definitely whatever I'm
definitely.
saying.
Latin says, I was not expecting your channel to be what it is. Don't know what that means, but hopefully
Yeah,
it's
what
good.
does that mean? Is that a veiled insult?
I think so.
Very contentious.
I'm going to make it all private when I become another white millennial video essay when I start analyzing cartoons and video games, because I think that's a midlife crisis that every white dude has to go through. Or I guess like a third life crisis.
Well, I didn't know that was the rule, but
yeah, I don't make the rules. I just live by them.
So how close are you to starting and following the trend?
I have unironically talked about it for years, but I don't know that I want to invest like in a proper recording setup and like learning how to edit video and stuff.
I'm still eating.
No worries.
I was gonna say, you just get somebody to do that work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of video editors. I just don't know that I care deeply enough about getting my voice out there to pay someone else to platform me.
Fair.
Podcast though, I think that's the route. Then I don't have to deal with buying a camera or video editing or anything like that.
I was actually, I actually kind of forgot about that, but what's the deal with the podcast? You're Monksy, right?
Monksy and I talked about it. Piz and I talked about it, and Piz is the more active of the discussers on that front, which is not like a dig on Monksy. He's busy with grad school and everything, but Piz and I still talk about it about once a week or so. We're trying to figure something out, so we'll see.
I told Piz that he sounds very much like a radio guy, so
he does.
He should capitalize on that.
Which is funny because I literally actually used to work in radio. I used to be a radio guy, but I don't think I sound like
that's the thing. Both of you guys sound like you fit, you know? Like, I mean, Monksy, you do too, but if you're too busy.
Yeah, but commentator like Monksy definitely sounds like he needs an outlet.
Yeah, like, you guys, once you get going, it's gonna be really good. I know it. So, I just wanna know when it's out there.
Oh, I'm sure that we'll be talking about it if it happens. I think it'll happen. I just don't know when.
Yeah, I know the feel. Too little time for everything.
Yeah, totally. It's not even that I don't have a lot of free time. I feel like I do have at least like an average amount of free time. It's just a matter of scheduling. Like everyone's in different time zones and has different things. And Corey's down. Yeah, it's like we haven't even solidified anything, Corey, but Piz messages me about once a week with like ideas and stuff. So.
Wow, really? That's funny.
We've been going back and forth on potential. I'm waiting right now. He said he wanted to put together a document with like his ideas for different like formats and stuff like that. So that's what we're waiting on at the moment.
Well, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very interested. Also because I want to be a guest sometime, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm just signing myself in.
Perfect.
No, but I seriously think you guys would do something super interesting, and I'm rooting for that.
Awesome. Well, you will know about it probably before anybody else. Probably send you stuff to proof listen to.
Ah, hell yeah, that would be very cool. But yeah, I totally understand. Like, I think it's a scheduling thing, and it's also not a matter of just having free time. I think a lot of the time doing something also just takes a lot of like just motivation, just like getting over that hump to the point where you see something concrete like happening. Like
Yeah.
that part, it takes so long to just get over that.
Totally. Yeah, and it's like a matter of if it was just like streaming where it's just like we turn on the mics and webcams and talk about things, like I think it would be different. But if I did a podcast, I would want it to be like edited and produced and concise. And so then there's like the whole getting back into audio editing and doing that sort of thing.
I got it. Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to just be like a go live and ramble thing. I would want it to be like produced, you know?
Well, that's a good idea, I guess, because that's more kind of the podcast format that people are used to. But I mean, I don't know if it would be a bad thing to just like get it started, even if it's going on and rambling at first, until you just at least get to practice enough, like you 2 or 3 talking and just like getting used to that setup, and then you can start getting more serious with it.
Sure. We'll see.
Monksy was an audio editor podcaster for 1.5 years, so getting back into it would be fun. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, him and I actually have like somewhat similar backgrounds. I also was an audio production engineer for like 2 years. And then after I left my formal job, still produced podcasts for a news group for like a year after that. So we both got the experience. I think we could make it work between the two of us, but just a matter of actually doing the thing, you know?
For sure.
Well, are you ready to talk about Circe?
Yeah, I have the book open, and I did take some quotes.
Good.
But as per usual, I didn't take notes because me and notes.
It wouldn't be Anka if you didn't take notes.
No.
Or if you did take notes.
I read like the whole thing. I read it last night and today, like for the first half of the day. I just sat in bed and read it from my laptop. So I wasn't gonna take any notes. I barely even did the reading. I was like halfway thinking, man, I'm not gonna make this on time, and maybe I should just like drop out. But then I got hooked by the story too. Like I felt like, but I want to know what happens,
It's pretty engaging, isn't it? More so than I expected.
Same. I actually really enjoyed reading it so far, and I really like how poetic it is. It's like written in this kind of archaic language in a way that really works for the topic. Like it really feels like somebody writing about old myths.
Yeah, it's kind of got that sense of like or it's written kind of in the style of like the Odyssey or the Iliad, right, where it's got like this kind of epic and mythological feel to the writing and not just the characters and stuff in it.
And for me, like it's very nostalgic also because when I was a kid, I happened to have like I had access to my mom's bookcase. She had a lot of books, but like one that she got me into very early on was this collection of ancient Greek myths that were actually like rewritten or shortened by this Romanian author or something. But like there was a lot of these stories written in there. So back then I used to know a lot of information about all the ancient Greek gods and stuff. I knew a lot of the legends.
Okay, so you're coming into this from a point of like education a little bit.
A bit, yeah. I mean, I haven't really done more studying since, so I just know a few things that I knew as a kid.
Sure.
But I still find it very interesting, the whole topic.
Definitely. You're coming at it with more context than I had. So we talked a little bit about this on Monday, but I've never read any Greek mythology. So this is like my first exposure to it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious what you thought. I like for me, since I don't really know how like accurate that book was in terms of what it was written in it, because it was just some Romanian author. I don't know how well like informed he was or whatever. Like I'm not sure if it was more like a novel version of those myths or not, or if he had the best sources. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that I still know kind of refers to that, so it might not be fully accurate either.
Makes sense.
But it was interesting to start reading this book, because this is also like, it's an interpretation of some myths, or like giving some I don't know, creating a story for a certain character that appears in the Odyssey that is obviously made up entirely. Like I think that what the author is doing is just taking some mythological characters and using some like actual information that the ancient Greeks believed or had as myth, but then she just makes a novelization of that. Like I don't think that the Greeks had this story about Circe.
Right, yeah.
So.
I did a little bit of like curious digging as to how, I guess, accurate, for better or for lack of a better term, the mythology was in this book. And it seems like Circe was one of the much less explored characters in like ancient Greek mythology and stories. And so like I think Madeline kind of found that void, right? And said, I'm going to put something in here to fill that up. Which has been interesting. And Lythan talked a little bit about how Hades, the game, kind of does something really similar. Focuses on characters that weren't really talked about as much, like Zagreus, and like builds out a world for them in kind of these gaps around the edges of mythology.
That's really cool. Yeah, this is why I wanted to play some actual Hades. I just haven't gotten around to it because I don't have it on PC yet.
Sure.
But that's also the part that's very interesting to me, just the fact that they filled in the gap for some lesser characters from the myth.
Yeah, and Lythan linked a really great video that I put in the book club playlist. So if you check that out at some point, all of these videos are going into a playlist, including supplemental material, which was Potato's idea, and I think it's really great. And Lythan linked. Is this? It's on my YouTube channel under the playlists tab. I think it's the only public playlist because I went and hid all the weird shit that I made playlists of.
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. But I thought it was like a channel in Discord, but I think I see. Do I see? Yes, found it. Circe Book Club.
Yeah, so putting supplemental in there, that was Potato's idea, and I think it's a really brilliant idea. And one of the things that we put in there was that video that Lythan sent, which is like a 3.5-hour breakdown of the way that Hades handles mythology and the things that were already existing and the things that they've added in, and like whether it sticks to like the accurate Greek myths, which I use that term, I guess, kind of loosely, because I feel like mythology, just like anything, is like, obviously it's all made up and there's going to be like different sources writing about it. There was no like authoritative society of mythology that yayed or nayed everything.
I think every there were a lot of myths that were different within the ancient Greek world. Like everybody just believed it some way or another. Like I don't think that they had like a cohesive mythology or a book about it that like we have the Bible or something like this. They
exactly
each had their own like stories and stuff that they circulated by word of mouth or something.
Which actually the Bible might be an interesting allegory, because there's the Apocrypha, right? Which were stories that were written at the time that were also supposed to be like biblical, but unlike the Christian church, or I guess like the Catholic church and the English kings that kind of codified like this will or will not be accepted into the Bible. Like I don't think there was anything like that for mythology, so it was a little more like kind of, if you wrote a story about it, and people liked it, it stuck around through the years, and if they didn't, it just fell to the wayside.
Yeah, like with the Bible, it's just that they decided at some point which ones would make it in and which ones wouldn't, and then that was like the rule. But yeah, with the Greeks, there wasn't anything like that that I'm aware of.
Sure.
And actually, like the Homeric like poems, I don't really know how they got transmitted, right? Like in the end, they were for a long time just transmitted orally, but when did they ever even get written down is what I don't even know.
That'd be some interesting history to look up. Maybe I can find a good video on it and post it in the playlist.
Yeah. Because like I guess that of anything, Homer's epics are kind of a good source.
Sure. Yeah, it's
And
considered
especially
kind
for
of one of the
Circe, like-
more what's the word that I'm looking for? Like timeless or lasting ones, you know?
Yeah, Circe in particular, I think, is a character that appears in the Odyssey. Like, isn't she somebody who keeps like Odysseus on her island against his will, or maybe that was somebody else?
I don't remember. I read them back in high school, so that was 15
Maybe-
years ago now.
I can read this. There's like a very short thing I would read from the wiki, maybe just
Sure.
about Circe from the Odyssey. So, Odysseus sailed on from this cannibal that destroyed all his ship except his own, right? And then he reached the island of Aea. It's gonna be hard reading these names, but anyways.
Yeah, we struggled
is-
with that on Monday.
Yeah, which is home of the witch goddess Circe. She turned half of his men into swine with drugged cheese, alright, and wine. Drugged cheese and wine? What? But yeah, that's what it says. Hermes warned Odysseus about Circe and gave Odysseus an herb called Molly. What are we talking about again?
Odysseus is
So-
taking Molly to try to get through his journey.
Yeah, from Hermes. Hermes is his dealer, making him resistant to Circe's magic. Odysseus forced Circe to change his men back into their human form and was seduced by her. They remained with her for 1 year. Finally guided by Circe's instructions, Odysseus and his crew crossed the ocean and reached a harbor at the western edge of the world where Odysseus sacrificed to the dead. He summoned the spirit of the prophet Tiresias and was told that he may return home if he is able to stay himself and his crew from eating the sacred livestock of Helios on the island of Thrinacia, and that failure to do so would result in the loss of his ship and his entire crew. And yeah, the story goes on after that. So that's what happened with Circe.
Gotcha.
That's like the only thing. I think she appears again later, but
Yeah, but
as
her
an
primary
advisor
thing
again.
is the island and the transformation and stuff, right? Which is,
yeah.
I think, what this book is kind of starting to lead to by the end of chapter 5, is her realizing that she's not going to have power unless she begins to harness these like herbs and medicines and things like that give her power.
And that was really cool because I thought like, oh my god, did she just discover that this is just an innate talent that she has, that this is her goddess power, because she thought she didn't have any?
Yeah.
But this is actually like the part where she started using herbs and kind of realized intuitively how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And how did she even know which herbs to collect? And then they actually worked and they fulfilled the purpose that she intended. That was really interesting. And they didn't really explain like why that happened. It felt kind of like she just has this power.
Yeah, and that's
Maybe.
kind of, I think, some of the first major character development we see out of her, right? Is she's always felt powerless and helpless and hopeless. And then she unlocks kind of this latent potential that she didn't realize that she had, to be able to go out and literally change the nature of people using these herbs.
It makes her very dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that her grandma recognizes that, right? Because when she's pleading with her grandma, she talks about how she wants to explore the power of the pharmaca, and her grandma gets furious.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really great quote that I took down where she said, "I had begun to know what fear was. What could make a god afraid? I knew that answer too, a power greater than their own." And that's her starting to realize, I think, that like she doesn't need the power of the gods, right? Like she has this thing that she can take into her own hands and learn and manipulate and master, and that's going to make her even more powerful than the gods in her perception.
Yeah, actually, I took that one down as well because that's she does find something that she can make others fear her, even
Mm-hmm.
gods themselves. So I mean, I was kind of rooting for her at that point
Totally
because
agree.
her whole story is her being put down by the gods around her, by the man that she had fallen in love with, and then helps turn into a god. And then once he becomes a god, he's like, "Oh no, I want the most beautiful goddess as wife. I don't want you."
Yeah, for sure.
And it was really horrible.
Yeah, she
And
has a
she,
very tragic arc so far, right?
yeah, it's super sad.
Um, I guess
But
before
I'm
we get
afraid
too
of how
far
what's
into
it
the
gonna turn
details,
her.
do you want to
Oh yeah.
give kind of your overall thoughts on the book so far
Um.
while we're talking about her big arcs and kind of her backstory and everything? I think it might be a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's still my main impression so far. That I'm really hooked by her arc
Mm-hmm.
because I feel a lot of sympathy for her situation. That she's um. Well, she's basically put down by her entire family the entire time, and well, it's just easy to sympathize for a character like that, I guess.
Sure.
And because I like the image that is being painted of the gods, because they're all quite petty and quite they're struggling for power all the time amongst themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're all these different groups that, like, her siblings were against her and the whole time trying to just talk awful things about her. um then there's the group of the Titans that are trying to get their power back from the Olympians, and they're timing the time when they're going to rise up again, but they have to keep quiet and not make a move too early or something. And they also just there's all this petty stuff going on.
Right.
So that was very interesting to me. I also just enjoyed the fact that everything in the god world is centered around, how beautiful somebody is. Like, it felt so, again, petty. Like,
Mm-hmm. Very vain, right?
at birth, yeah, at birth they are just judged by, well, is this person beautiful enough? Well, person, god, goddess, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call them, are they beautiful enough um to warrant any sort of status, or uh, to be blessed or whatever. They make a prophecy that they will marry, I don't know, this and this god, or no, they will marry a mortal, and that's kind of like an insult. And
Yeah, yeah.
um it's very much just like the status is very much ingrained,
It
or
almost felt to
the
me a bit
status
like
mindset.
a caste system where, like,
Yeah,
when you are born, you get your worth applied to you at birth based on these things that are totally outside
right.
of your control, and then that's just your lot in life for the rest of forever.
Yeah, and the whole cast, like, I think Circe was describing that there's this chain of fear or something,
Mm-hmm.
that the mortals are at the very bottom, and then there's like her kind of cast, all these nymphs who are, they don't really have any power or any authority, and they also have to um make sure they don't anger any powerful gods.
Right.
And then it's like her father Helios is almost at the top after the Olympians or something.
Mm-hmm.
um but the fact that she is the daughter of Helios doesn't really give her that much power.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's very
And it
very
all
much
feels
that they
very
give better
arbitrary.
vibes.
Like she's the daughter of a god and a goddess, and yet she got almost nothing of those traits. But that doesn't really matter because it's just gonna, I mean, it does matter, but like the fact that she had no say in it doesn't matter because she's just gonna be stuck in this spot for the rest of her life, like looked down upon by everyone except for mortals, and you know, like given no respect or agency or anything like that.
I And what was her situation with her mother? Because they don't actually make it sound like her mother was a full-on goddess either.
Yeah, I think
Did you?
she was more than a nymph, right? I think she was a naiad was the term, which like control the streams and the rivers, but don't have any like major, like they can't change the outcome of the world or anything like that.
Hmm. And I remember that her mother also was thrown away after a while. Like she wasn't allowed to be Helios's wife anymore, or so. So there's something that happens down the line.
That was a point I was kind of confused about. Um Naiads are gardens of fountains and streams. Naiads,
Hmm.
nymphs, and river gods all kind of hold the same sway. I was looking through the book really quick, the ebook, did a search for Naiad.
Yeah, so what does that make Circe even? Because she wasn't even one of those river or
Right, she
stream
has no,
gods.
not even a spring that she watches over, which is a conversation she has with her grandma when her grandma's trying to get her to demand tribute from this mortal Glaukos that she has interest in, or Glausos. I'm not
Right.
sure how the Greek is pronounced.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
But
that was
that's
an
true.
interesting point that you brought up in that it makes it pretty clear early on that Circe, or not Circe, but her mother, Perses, is no longer allowed to have children by Helios. But then later, when it talks about her having like Aeetes, I think, the eagle,
Hmm.
it sounds like that's with Circe and Helios again, because he talks about how he is the son of Helios, and his and Circe's mother was the term that they use, which is vile, is whelped. Um, but so I am a little confused as to whether or not that whole you can't have children by Helios thing stayed, or if that's in effect or not. The exact quote is my mother whelped again a boy. My father blessed him, but spoke no prophecy, so my mother looked around for somewhere to leave him. So I guess maybe Helios can still bless children that aren't his. Maybe it is of another person, but
Aethes was just the last one before whatever this downfall was happened, you know?
okay, that's possible.
Like, I know that it was said in the book that she had four, she was allowed to have four
Oh yeah,
uh,
okay, that would make sense
children.
because she has Circe, Paris, Pasiphae, and then Aetes.
Yeah, so I guess those are the four.
Yeah,
And
okay.
by that, like by the end of the chapters, it said that, I don't know, Helios starts preferring his daughters to um what's her name again? I couldn't
The
can't
mom?
yeah.
It's Perseus,
Percy?
I believe. Percy is her
Per
brother, named after her mom. But
so
Perseus,
Percy's
I think, is the mom, if I remember right. Hold on, I have it in my notes.
Percy is the daughter.
Percy is the mother, Perseus is the son. And then
Yeah,
Pasiphae is the daughter.
right, okay, alright.
A lot of Greek names to keep track of. It's literally all Greek to me.
Same. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll get
The
there.
more we read the book, they'll probably stick. But okay, how do we go through? Do you have any other like overarching thoughts you want to share, or
Yeah, so I started out to be honest, not really enjoying the book. Like the first chapter was really not my thing, and I was like, oh man, like I'm gonna read it, right? It's the book club book, but like this is not what I was expecting it to be based on the description on the back, the synopsis. I thought that Circe would like basically be kind of like a chosen one, immensely powerful from the start, almost like a Harry Potter kind of figure where it's like privileged mother, privileged father, like kind of had everything. And she didn't. Obviously, she had like this terrible life at the start where she was powerless and looked down upon by everyone. So it wasn't really what I was expecting going into it.
Well, I guess that's a good thing that I don't do any research before I consume something. Out of laziness mostly, but
so it wasn't what I was expecting going into it, but now that I am into it, I'm really, really enjoying it. I think it's picked up a lot. Watching her kind of get to the point where she's not going to take it anymore and she's going to take things into her own hands and become powerful regardless of whether the people around her believe in her or want her to or not is a really compelling, I think, hook that's keeping me going for sure.
Yeah, like I'm very interested to see what's gonna happen in chapter 6 because we just stopped at this point where she's gonna fuck up this other character.
Yeah, she's poisoning Scylla's bathwater with her herbs.
Oh yeah. And she's not sure if it's gonna work, but I'm pretty sure it will. Like,
yeah, I don't see a world where something doesn't happen. Although it might backfire on her. Maybe Scylla will become even more beautiful, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but I am very interested to see where it goes.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And, you know, based on, like, the name of the character whose water she poisoned, I think shit is gonna go very badly for that character because her name is Scylla, right?
Right.
And Scylla, from the stuff that I remember back when I was reading stuff as a kid, she turns into a big monster that again shows up in the Odyssey.
Gotcha.
And it's like, there's like Scylla and Charybda. These are like two big, how do I call them? There's some sort of, I don't know, they were part of a mountain or something. Like they're these huge challenges that Odysseus has to navigate his ship.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of them is this gigantic maw in the mountain that closes and opens and he has to just pass through. And then I'm not sure if which one is Scylla and which one's Charybda, but they're both something like this monstrous, huge force of nature.
Yeah.
That's also personified.
So it sounds like Scylla's gonna turn into something very nasty, is what you're saying.
Yes. That's the idea.
Interesting.
A legendary monster who lives on one side of a narrow channel of water, opposite her counterpart Charybdis. Okay, in English, her name is a bit different. So they're close to each other, and so when any sailors attempting to avoid Charybdis would pass dangerously close to Scylla and vice versa. So they're just like this. It's kind of like this obstacle course that they form. Yeah. And it's very cool that what the power that Circe has is to use these herbs to reveal the true nature of the person affected by them. Like that's really cool because it's just like, well, she's not doing something evil, she's just bringing out what's already there, kind of.
Definitely. Obviously though, like, she's not turning them into anything that they wouldn't be without her, but she's also selectively choosing when to apply this power. So she might not be doing evil things necessarily, but I definitely feel like she is doing passive things evilly. Like she has her motivations, right? Even if she's not like,
I mean, that's what I was gonna say, that I don't necessarily think that it's entirely innocent what she does either.
Exactly.
Because it's not, it's kind of like that situation where you put somebody in a certain, like, it's kind of like being framed by the police or something. Like if you if you put somebody in a situation where they might crack and do something,
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean that that's necessarily their nature, or that would have they would have done that crime anyways or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't fully like what happens with her, like her love interest, right?
Right.
there's there's no actual evidence to believe that once he became a god, he would have been so self-absorbed and arrogant, right?
Sure,
Like
sure.
he was a very humble human, and seemed to have pure intentions or whatever. So um was that really his nature, you know,
Yeah.
that he turned into? I don't know.
This is something that we talked about a little bit on Monday, which is how much of his behavior was driven by his true nature and how much of
Mm.
his behavior was driven by like both the fear and the possibility of getting close to a god. Because he knows that Circe is at least a lesser god when he meets her. She's very upfront about the fact that she doesn't have powers and she doesn't have a kingdom, but she is a god, and I don't think that he would have necessarily even given her the time of day without her being a god. So is there kind of hinting at his nature already that he is like a little bit self-absorbed, right? That he's like, "Oh, I'm going to woo this god, so it's worth my time to like pursue her because that's like a better thing for me or like something I'm going to benefit from, you know?"
It's possible. It's just not really, it's not really apparent
Yeah.
when you initially read about it.
I did
Only
take
later.
notes about it specifically. Uh
Unless maybe I missed it.
I don't think that it's like, I don't know if I'm overanalyzing it or what, but I did put, would Glaucus have given her the time of day if she wasn't a god?
Wait, give me a second. I will mute myself to cough really hard.
No
'cause
worries.
And we're back.
All right,
I
welcome
just
back.
drank water a bit too fast there.
Uh-oh. Been there before.
No, it wasn't as bad as I feared, but still. Yeah, I mean, it's very possible that that was what his thought process was, even while he was human. He was maybe just trying to gain favor with the goddess.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
and I don't know. I don't think it's something that will ever be explored in the book, but it's definitely a thought that crossed my mind, was like, what is his motivation here?
Sure.
When they
Yeah.
meet, she talks about how she is part of this chain of fear, even though she didn't perceive herself as it, and even though she didn't want to be part of it. And I thought that was interesting. It goes a little bit more into kind of this institutional power structure they have and kind of the caste system that we were talking about, where, again, like, by no choice of her own and by no fault of her own, she is perceived as this stronger being, as this more powerful creature, as this thing that should be feared and respected, even though she doesn't perceive herself that way. Which I think is interesting because we often see in institutional power, especially when it's challenged, that people who benefit from it don't necessarily see themselves as benefiting, even when they do. And I thought it was interesting that that was reflected in kind of Circe's reaction to Glaucus meeting her.
Yeah. Kind of like not being aware of your privilege sort of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Because she sees herself as the bottom of the rung, right? She's always been mistreated by everyone around her, and she's always been like beaten down on, right? She doesn't really see herself as privileged, but when she gets into a situation where she's surrounded by people who have even less than her, it kind of shocks her that she's like, oh, I didn't realize that like I was perceived this way, or I could be seen this way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that is her life experience up to that point. That is true.
Yeah.
Like, she always has to get out of the way of other people, other gods.
Right.
I mean, in a way, I felt happy for her to finally get a different kind of treatment.
Yeah, I think it was
At
nice.
that point.
It felt like she deserved it, right? Like after everything she'd
Yeah.
been through.
Yeah, but then it was so tragic that actually it turns out that she does all this for this human to hopefully, like she's so hopeful about having a husband in this person, and um finally getting that for herself more lastingly, somebody that would appreciate her. And then it turns out that turning him into a god is actually exactly what cut her off from having that. Like
Hmm.
had she let him be immortal, he would have, I mean, I guess they couldn't have married because this was also not allowed by the gods.
Right.
They wouldn't have allowed her to do that, but they could have probably still had some sort of affair if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
kept it secret enough. But turning him into a god actually, um, ironically, made the whole thing die.
Yeah.
And she didn't want him to die. She didn't want him to be mortal and one day have to give him up.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting too that we'll never really see the consequences of her potentially having an affair when she pleads with her grandmother to make his nets full. She essentially says like you shouldn't be trifling with this mortal, right? Like he is lesser than you. And Circe basically says like I've got nothing. I don't care if he's lesser than me. And so the grandma says like sure, I'll fill his nets, but you're never allowed to lay with him. You're never allowed to be with him. And I was deathly curious what would have happened if she had. And we'll never get to see
Yeah.
that now because Glaukos is a god. But I really wanted to know like what would the consequences have been had she not listened to that.
Yeah, but I'm curious what's gonna happen because Circe will actually do this with Odysseus,
Right.
which is also immortal. I think Odysseus is still the son of. I'm not sure if he's the son of Zeus or somebody like that. Um, I have to look this up, but I think he's immortal
Gotcha.
either way. And so at that point, there's still gonna be a situation like this where she gets involved with mortals.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess at the point where that happens, she will be so powerful that I guess nobody would stand against that.
Sure, a little untouchable, especially if her
Yeah.
power really does exceed the gods, which is kind of what the back jacket of the book hints to.
Mm-hmm.
Says she can transform rivals into monsters and menace the gods themselves. Threatened, Zeus banishes Circe to a deserted island. So she gets powerful enough to threaten Zeus, which is obviously like the top of the top, the pinnacle of power.
Yeah. Very interesting. I'm not getting if like whose son Odysseus was. Maybe he wasn't even the son of a god. Just legendary king, Greek king of Ithaca and the hero of Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey.
Odysseus was son of Laertes and Anticlea. I don't know if either of those are gods. No,
Oh, yeah,
Laertes
right.
was immortal.
I think they're both just regular all mortals. Yeah, no demigod status or anything.
Anticlea is Greek for without fame. How brutal. What a
Oh
rough
my
name.
god! Dude, Jesus. Ow. If you
Ooh.
wanna fucking insult somebody,
True.
gee. Alright, those ancient Greeks didn't mess around. When it comes to burning others, nope.
Another thing that I found really interesting about this section, which kind of leads into Circe's power and like her untapped potential, is there's this big talk about duality, about how things under the surface never quite seem like they do at face value. And it's explored a lot during the conversation with the Titans and Helios, when they're telling him like, hey, you need to lead this rebellion, and he's saying, you know, Zeus is doing a great job, and there's this undertone of for now, right? Or like
Yeah.
there doesn't need to be any bloodshed, and there's this undertone of for now. And there's this great very short quote that I don't know necessarily needs any extra analysis, but I thought was just a really beautifully written sentence, which is, beneath the smooth familiar face of things is another that waits to tear the world in two. And I think that that's kind of something that we're seeing a lot of in the politics of the gods and in Circe's, increasing desire to become powerful. On externally, she still looks like this weak goddess who has no powers and has no agency, but underneath she's slowly accumulating this power and becoming stronger, and will eventually rise up to be this dangerous force of nature. So kind of the duality of what we perceive versus what's actually happening, I think, has been a really interesting part of the book so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of scheming that goes on.
Yeah. What
And I
did you
guess we'll
think
also
about all
see
the
that.
discussion of eyes? Did you notice that that was a really common thing popping up?
The discussion of eyes?
So the word
Yes.
eyes, we read 50 pages, and the word eyes was used. I'm counting.
Hmm. I mean,
The word eyes was used 44 times in the 50 pages that we read. It looks like the door to power, right? Like, just by looking at someone's eyes, you can tell how powerful they are. They talk about them when these gods show emotions. It seems like eyes are, at least to Madeline Miller's depiction of this world, immensely important. And I am curious to see if that goes anywhere, or if you maybe noticed that, or if you thought that they were symbolic of something more.
think that much about it, but I'm looking through what I quotes I saved. The thing was that I took it as one of the aspects that um the gods really consider when it comes to somebody's beauty,
Right.
because they were saying about Circe was to insult her looks was her eyes are yellow as piss. Her
Right.
voice is screechy as an owl. She is called hawk, but she should be called goat for her ugliness. Um, or like another, and at some point she tries to say, "My eyes are like yours," I said to her sister. How sweet. No, darling. Ours are bright as fire, and our hair like the sun on the water. You're clever to keep yours in a braid. Oh, was actually the talk that she was having with the daughters of Helios that were taking care of his holy cows,
Right.
and they were also talking about her brown hair, like it had this streaking that you needed to hide in a braid. Like they also talk about her hair, her voice, and her eyes. But I wasn't sure if that was like eyes specifically, if they have a separate meaning.
I feel like there has to be something there. They were mentioned almost once a page, if you average it out. And so there has to be something here, but I haven't picked apart what she's trying to do with them yet. And it's a trend that keeps up throughout the book. I'm looking at the ebook results for eyes, just scrolling through without trying to read any spoilers or anything. And it's mentioned dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times throughout the book.
Yeah, I mean, if I do a search in here, for sure, there's a lot. Yeah, like they also seem to identify people by their eyes, like whose children they are. She must be one of Percy's children. Look at her eyes.
Sure.
But that's also an insult to her mother, because they're saying that her eyes are ugly. So
yeah, I think that Percy was definitely considered a lesser god, right? These naiads are not strong or powerful, and Helios is the most powerful of all the Titans. So I definitely think that there is this perception of Helios marrying down, so to speak, in this case, not getting a wife who's befitting of his power and his stance.
I mean, that's I think the point, that the whole idea here is that their mentality is very physique based. Like
Yeah.
the gods, they care so much about somebody almost being like, I don't want this, like that. This almost gives me these vibes of like the pure race or something. Like, yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
somebody is like only good as long as they are of a certain physique, a certain level of beauty and stuff like this. Like they dictate somebody's worth based on how like constitutionally, well, constitution, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like this whole kind of like, um I'm not sure how to phrase it right now, but I guess you get what I mean, that it's just about who's more evolutionarily like fit in a way.
100%.
um
Yeah,
so
I
the
think
the,
that
the
there is
way
very
that they
much like
look
this
is very
pure-blooded
tied, but
supremacy thing going on there, and I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
exactly.
where like you're seeing if you like marry with or have children with a mortal, like you're seen as basically like disgusting. Perseus, I don't remember the term. Mortal, I think this is where it was mentioned. Somewhere in there her mom talks about her thoughts on mortals, and it's literally like these lesser beasts, like this impure chattel and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's very shameless that she thinks that they're lesser, they're disgusting.
Yeah, and at the opposite spectrum is Prometheus, who actually wants to help mortals, even at the cost of him like being punished for eternity for it.
Yeah.
But he actually seems to love and treasure the mortals. So he's also a Titan himself, but he doesn't see things the way um the gods typically do.
Mm-hmm.
That also makes Circe kind of think about the mortals differently, I
Differently.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Are you okay with taking a 5-minute break? I gotta run to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, go for it.
All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm gonna just see what. Oh, Green is here. More. Oh my god! Of course you would pop in for this topic. Of course you would. Well, welcome. Mortals are referred to as creatures of a day in Prometheus, bound by the nymphs. Wait, what do you mean with Prometheus bound by the nymphs? Is this like a book? Prometheus Bound is an ancient Greek tragedy traditionally attributed to Aeschylus. Okay, so this is how they are. Prometheus Bound. What's with the nymphs in there? Just trying to follow what you're referencing there. Creatures are creatures of a day. Yeah, I guess that their life is as short as a fruit fly would be for humans, right? Like compared to how the gods, the gods' timeless like eternity. Wait, like they are the chorus, so they are the main characters alongside Prometheus? Hmm. I'm just reading a bit about the Prometheus Bound play. I mean, I don't know anything about that one, but I found it interesting. In this book that we're reading, like there's this whole section about Prometheus being punished for helping the mortals. Um and you see that nobody actually defends him, and he just takes his punishment silently. But there's never like any insight shown into why he did this, and that's also what Circe is left wondering, like, especially because it said that Prometheus had the gift of foresight. So he would have known what kind of punishment he would receive for crossing Zeus's wish and giving fire to the mortals. Like, he knew how heavily he would be punished, and yet he still did it. And Circe is left wondering what drove him to do that. Playing Hades. This is very good background noise. Hey, we're not background noise, excuse me. We're trying to discuss heavy topics here. Nah, I'm just kidding. Hades is a pretty fitting thing to play, I guess, alongside this. Eternity is apt, they are immortal, and even in like Hesiod's Theogony, wherein the Olympians overthrow the Titans, no one dies, they just get mutilated and are thrown in Tartarus. Yeah, like they can't actually kill Titans, they just lock them up. I'm just interested in what exactly does myth say concerning, I don't know, the motivation Prometheus had to bring fire to the mortals. Because that's something I don't actually like. I don't remember from anything I've read in the past, I don't remember this ever being really explained or whatever, explored. It's the same in Prometheus Bound, his motivations are unclear except that he wanted to stop Zeus from killing them all. What did Zeus actually want to kill them all? Like the mortals? Or just the Titans, you mean?
I'm back.
Hey, welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back.
Green with the insights in chat.
Yeah. Green is studies this topic.
Gotcha.
Very heavily in university, so I'm sure he's gonna have a.
Are they the one that you were talking history with on your stream a while back?
Yep, that's him. So.
Gotcha.
We can see get some more direct references that he's aware of.
Sure. Yeah, any insight is appreciated. It's fun going into this book kind of blind to mythology. I think it's really interesting to see what I am learning about how awful these characters are. I knew that like mythological gods were kind of like careless and self-centered, but seeing to what extent has been really fun going in blind. But there is definitely a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I wish I knew a little bit more about this person's context in the history of mythology to kind of help guide how I feel about them more than just what's on these pages, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny just for my personal history that I grew up reading about horrible shit that gods used to do, right? Like this was just kind of like my fairy tale book as a kid, which I guess it probably fucked me up in some ways, but yeah, to me it's like, oh yeah, I know they were doing some massively fucked up shit, but at that age I probably didn't understand fully like how horrible this was, but it still felt like, wow, like this is really unhinged, and these gods are nothing like you would expect god like behavior to be. Like these are just like very petty, unrestrained, unpredictable. Yeah, just it's totally different than what you read for example in stuff like Bible.
Right.
Where you get this totally different image of what God is like, this image of perfection, somebody infallible, all-knowing, whatever. While the gods in ancient myth are just kind of like really horrible people that just have too much power or something.
Sure.
And they can't be held accountable, so they just do whatever the hell they please.
Well, I was shocked to see, and I've gone back and read a little bit more, and evidently this isn't super uncommon, but we was talking about Helios's mythological legendary cows and how Helios himself has sex with the cows to sire new ones.
And And I love this whole moment where Circe's siblings just make fun of her for not realizing that her dad just goes and fucks these cows. Like,
Right.
Jesus Christ. And the mother is also aware of this, and she also makes fun of her daughter for not realizing this. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Right. That really took me by surprise for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, let's see what's with the comments here. There's very little on Prometheus because we were talking about how Prometheus is like the only god who actually sides with the humans, but
Mm-hmm.
his motivations are not really clear. Like why, knowing what kind of punishment would come for him,
Sure.
he still does this sort of act to help them. So there's very little on Prometheus. All we have is Hesiod's Theogony and Works and Days. Prometheus bound by Aeschylus and Protagoras by Plato. Okay, that's a big name drop, but doesn't. What did it actually say? He's super different in each source.
Interesting.
Ah,
So we don't really have any clear picture about Prometheus.
yeah, I guess maybe they just had this figure of, well, there's a god who actually, he sounds very Christ-like almost, like um because he gets also chained, you know, and sacrificed in a way, so he kind of sounded Christ-like to me, like he's some
Yeah.
sort of savior.
Mm-hmm.
Except in the book of Job. Wait, do the gods do crazy, like God does crazy shit in the book of Job too?
Oh, the book of Job in the Bible, yeah, God becomes this very spiteful and vengeful. Well, not
Oh,
like
it's that
spiteful.
one.
He the devil basically says like I can convince Job to like or to rebuke you, right? Or give up Christianity. And God's like, "No, you
Mhm.
can't. Like Job is really like loyal and like kind and he would be with me no matter what." And the devil is like, "All right, well then like let me do my worst." And he kills like all of Job's livestock and children and
Oh
stuff
my
like that. And
god.
Job is still like loyal to God and God's basically like, "Well, look, told you so." It's really fucked up.
Wow. But that's not telling me what's with God's actions in that one.
I mean, the fact that he lets it happen, right? He steps aside and is just
Yeah.
like, well, like, do horrible things to this guy who loves me maybe more than anyone else in literally the history of the Bible.
Yeah, like he turns into just this fucking faceless challenge. Like, yeah, look how powerful I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible, I see. Hmm. Gosh, I cannot stop snacking at the moment, so bear with me if I'm hopefully not chewing very loudly. Let me know if I am, because
No,
I
I
don't
can't hear
wanna.
you chewing, but occasionally you go, mmm.
Well, okay, maybe that's acceptable. So you still know that I'm munching, but it's not obnoxious. Hopefully
Oh,
not,
okay. I think I
okay?
found the quote that I was talking about Percy's Percy's thoughts on mortals. I think I found it in my notes. Let me pull up the book and see if this is the right section.
Wait, just this last comment. God totally brings it on by bragging about how great Job. I can't call him Job. I keep calling him Job, because, you know,
You're in
not my
Germany, so
native
shouldn't it be
language.
Yob?
True, it should be Job. I guess I'll call him Job. And then he does it again. It's amazing. It's a great story. Wait, so he like keeps he keeps like bragging about how loyal he is. God is a braggart. All right.
No, I didn't. I couldn't find the quote. I'll try to find it by next book club and all. But no, the Old Testament God is also a very like petty, spiteful, wipe out all of my enemies, leave no speck of them, women, children, everybody kind of person. So, not exactly all angels and sunshine. Interesting to me that Glaucos recoiled when he thought Circe was hundreds of years old, when in actuality she was thousands, but she lied about her age, kind of willing to do whatever she needed to keep her happiness, you know? Uh Definitely felt like a moment of maybe weakness for Circe, kind of like this dark before the dawn of pulling out the powers of the Pharmaca. Did you kind of catch on to that? What were your thoughts on the fact that Circe felt compelled to lie to keep her love intact?
Actually, that got me thinking too, because I was really confused why, first of all, um, he was so like weirded out by that.
Same.
I don't quite understand, unless he. I don't know if it was a sort of like one, either that he couldn't comprehend somebody being so timeless in a way or something that it
Sure.
freaked him out, or that he, I don't know, like, was it a pride thing that he didn't somehow want to accept that she was so experienced in a way? That didn't really come across that way though, like, because he's actually freaked out. Maybe it was more of a, I cannot comprehend that you look like me but you're ancient, and but it didn't really make any sense why he was scared of that.
I think my interpretation of it was kind of similar to what's been happening with the other gods and things that we've introduced to in this story, where they just recoil at things that aren't like them, right? Like they find mortals disgusting, the Titans find the Olympians
Hmm.
disgusting, the Olympians find the Titans disgusting. Like everyone is very
Yeah.
like tribal. And so Glaukos finds this goddess that he thinks is beautiful, and then he realizes that she is like every other god and is not like him, and that kind of makes him uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah, like that is the really strange paradox here, that he's aware that she's a goddess,
Mm-hmm.
yet at the same time he freaks out that he's not, that she's not like him.
Yeah,
Like that sounds very like cognitive dissonance to me.
sure.
And yeah, with I agree that they all have this very tribal mindset where they cannot accept or wrap their heads around those who are different,
Yeah.
and they have to repress them as much as possible. Like in a sense, that's also what I felt like. Circe was being suppressed also by this mortal because she needed she needed to adapt to the fact that he was scared of that so as to not lose him. So
Mm-hmm.
even here it's shown that she's just so desperate for being accepted and loved by somebody. Um and yeah, I think it's just because she felt very um alone and powerless.
Yeah.
Like she even loses this brother who seemed to like really be on her side in things, but even he just goes off and takes this kingdom that his father gives him and doesn't accept that she would come along, which
Yeah.
is something that I also don't understand. Like he didn't want to associate with her
Glad that you
any
brought
longer.
that up because it was obviously the only other time when she's felt like close to someone, and it seems like in both situations. And I don't want to sound like I'm blaming her because obviously her circumstances led her to be like incredibly desperate for affection. But in both the situation with Aetis, her brother, and with Glaukos, like she throws herself so wholly at these relationships that she kind of gives up
Mhm.
focusing on herself, right? She is like willing to kind of give up her sense of self and become whatever they want her to be, and
Yeah,
then gets burned both times for it.
what a life lesson.
True. Cersei coming in with the facts.
Yeah, yeah. Not gonna lie, that's a lesson for me as well
Sure.
in my personal life.
Definitely.
Can relate. But yeah, that's true that she's so desperate to hold on to something, to some form of acceptance, that she does want to try to bend herself.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, she also isn't entirely like that, because she also just, she could be trying harder to please her sisters, her mother. Like she's not entirely a doormat,
Right.
but there are these situations where she does get some form of appreciation, and then she gets very hooked on that
Yeah, totally.
because she's very used to being degraded and just you know just holding it in or whatever. Like she doesn't she has adapted to just not show that she's affected by these things.
Agree.
But when it comes to actually finding shelter with somebody or whatever, finally being getting that sort of appreciation that she craves, then it's very hard for her to not want to hang on to that and not let it go. So
Mm-hmm.
just made me feel a lot of sympathy for that.
I've got to head out in about 10 minutes, so do you want to loop around to quotes? Because I know that you said you brought some before we close out.
Sure, yeah. That's also fine for me. I guess it's getting
It's getting
close to
pretty late
11.
for you.
Yeah, so I will need to head to bed as well. But yeah, let me see what quotes I have that we didn't talk about yet. Um, I mean, I marked a lot of stuff, but I'm not sure what's actually worth mentioning.
Lay it on me.
Um,
Anything you got.
so there's a quote about Prometheus' punishment.
Okay.
They were discussing basically what is the meaning of this of this punishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the punishment is to be public. It's an insult, a lesson they teach us. Look at what happens to titans who do not obey. My father's light had taken on a keen white edge. This is the chastisement of a renegade and no more. Prometheus was led astray by his foolish love for mortals. There is no lesson here for a titan. Do you understand? My uncles nodded, on their faces disappointment braided with relief. No blood for now. So this is what you mentioned earlier, that there is this outer projection of, yeah, we will let this go. We won't take this as an insult because we're trying to maintain the appearances, but actually, like, there is this brooding, like, plan that happens here, that they will rise eventually at the right time.
Right.
But they're willing to just abandon their brother Prometheus, well, for now. Just let him take the punishment.
Sure. And it's kind of interesting that Helios gets to have the say in like whether or not it's time to rise up, because he is one of the most powerful titans, right? They talked about how Zeus took the powers away from all the titans except for Helios and Oceanos. So
Oceanus was even stronger than him, but I guess not.
I don't recall. But either way, he's like top 2 titans, right? Like within some of the most powerful gods in this circle. So on one hand, it makes sense for him to be the one that they go to and talk about this rebellion, because he is probably going to be the one that leads them. But on the other hand, I think there's also this sense of like less urgency out of him, right? Because it doesn't really, and it talks about him retreating into his hobbies more than like caring about being a god and power and having children and stuff like that. I feel like there's maybe less of a sense of urgency for him to care about these kind of things, because he is still powerful, right? He still has like all of the benefits that he had before, and he doesn't have to deal with feeling slighted like the other titans do.
Yeah. Well, but I guess that he still does feel slighted. It's just that he can afford to postpone,
right,
and not risk losing any of the status that he has now.
Sure. I brought another quote, which I think the last sentence and the last 2 sentences of are really interesting. And again, it kind of talks about this duality and this like not necessarily perceiving things how they truly are. So this is when Circe's talking to her grandmother, pleading to let Glaukos be part of her life. She says, "That man," I said, nearly choking, "he will die." Her stool was oak, draped with the softest weavings. The yarn in her fingers was river stone green. She was winding it on her shuttle. "Oh, granddaughter," she said, "of course he will. He's mortal. That's their lot."
Yeah.
"It's not fair," I said. "It cannot be." "Those are two different things," my grandmother said. So this perception that Circe has of like the world, of saying that like, hey, if something isn't fair, it cannot possibly be fair. And her grandma being like, no, you're missing like a lot of nuance here and a lot of understanding as to like what makes this work, right? Like you don't get this full picture of the world. I thought was really cool, really good.
Yeah, she was not. I mean, there's a lot of this talk of her not being experienced,
Mm-hmm.
not being experienced with aspects of love or of how the mortal world is, what death means. She
Right.
only she only fully realizes the weight of mortality once she falls in love with a mortal and has realized that she will lose him one day. And yeah, she has to understand the reality of all these things.
Definitely.
Another one that I liked was also when she kind of started understanding something about Prometheus. Just from meeting him, I did not know if I was kind. Wait, no, never mind. I'll read it from here. He
Okay.
spoke carefully, almost tentatively, yet his treason had been so brazen. My mind struggled with this contradiction. Bold action and bold manner are not the same. So she was just surprised to see how gentle he behaved, and that contradicted with how big his treason has been. So she learns to kind of realize that it doesn't take a certain demeanor to be brave, or it doesn't. You don't have to act a certain way to be capable of big action.
Right. Yeah.
So
really
it's
good.
not all about appearances as well, in a way. And I guess there's a lot of other talk in the book where it is all about appearance. Like at some point there's a quote about learning to sniff where power is, or something like this, like based on smell, which
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like is it again about this like racial supremacy sort of thing, or more like a metaphor, like it's in their demeanor? Like, was the scent meant to be more about their demeanor, or is it like literally their scent?
Yeah,
Like
I don't know. That was
some gods didn't smell of anything, so they were powerless. I'm trying to find the quote, but
I have it here. I did not doubt Prometheus. Oh, hold on. It was piteous, as it might have been an immortal. We gods eat as we sleep because it's one of life's great pleasures, not because we have to. We may decide one day not to obey our stomachs if we're strong enough. I did not doubt Prometheus was. After all those hours at my father's feet, I had learned to nose out power where it laid. Some of my uncles had less scent from the chairs than they sat on, but my grandfather, Oceanos, smelled deep as rich river mud, and my father like a searing blaze of just fed fire. Prometheus' green moss scent filled the room. And I think we kind of talked a little bit about this in Monday's book club, and I think the consensus was that Madeline is really attempting to paint the gods as like physical embodiments of what they are, right? Like Oceanos is the god of the river and the seas, and so he smells like river mud. And Helios is the god of fire, so he smells like fire. And then Prometheus, who again, like we don't know a lot about, smells like moss. And I don't really know why that's the case when he's like the god of the mortals, more or less. Like I don't know what Prometheus was a god over before he fell from grace. But in my opinion, it was more just trying to personify these characters than it was like trying to make a big statement. But I might be missing something there. I'm definitely not.
Prometheus is supposed to be the Titan god of fire, so I'm not sure either way he would smell of moss.
Yeah.
But But yeah, it's definitely that the gods are kind of portrayed as forces of nature too. So it does make sense that a lot of their features are based on these um, physical or like sensual aspects, like their smell, their how much they shine or something, how they sound. Like it's all about the senses with them, kind of.
Right. All right. Unfortunately, this has to be my stopping point. I've got something coming up at 2, so I have to head out.
Okay. Well,
But
I enjoyed this, so
yeah, I totally agree. Hopefully, we can snag a couple more people on the next meeting. But if not, totally fine as well. I'm down to just talk to you. Do we want to look ahead and see about where we should read to for the next meeting?
yeah, so maybe just like, I don't know how long the chapters are, but maybe I would make it a bit shorter, like 4 chapters, just to be sure that I have enough time to do the reading.
Okay. So
And
the
it would
chapters
be in
get
2
longer
weeks, right?
after chapter 8. So we could do chapters 6, 7, and 8. And then after that, they start getting pretty long.
Yeah.
That would be
Well, that's also
45
fine.
pages. So it'd be 10% less than what we read last time.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
For me, at least.
Okay, so let's do chapters 6, 7, and 8 in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. Thanks, Anka. Appreciate you being here.
You too, Eric.
Have a good night.
For, having me. Have a good day yourself.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I was a little stressed about that first YouTube stream, but it seems like it went off well. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. This will go in the playlist on my channel if you want to check out Group A's meeting from Monday for a little bit more context, or if you want to rewatch this for any reason. Supplemental material going to be added into there as well. The Mythology of Hades, recommended by Lythen, is already in there. So if you want to see a little bit about that, it talks kind of about similar things that Circe does, where there's these unfilled gaps in mythology. Yeah, you can get a cat cameo. There's these unfilled gaps in mythology that like modern fiction has the chance to fill in an interesting way. So if you are into Hades, if you are into mythology, or if you have been enjoying these discussions about Circe so far, I would highly recommend that. I don't think there's a cat out here. Oh, here's Waffles. Let me go grab Waffles really quick. Yeah, thanks for being here, Green. You brought a lot to the conversation. I super appreciate your insight, and I hope that we can get you hanging out again in the future. Let me go grab a cat really quick for Yoron. Say hi, Waff. Such a little lump. I know. Alright, everyone. Take it easy. I wish this was like Twitch and we could go raid someone up and take our friends over, but we can't. So instead, I will just bid you adieu.